And welcome to the Pride of Detroit First Bite podcast, our preview podcast for the Detroit Lions, where we bring in a guest from the opposing side to help preview the Lions matchup. It is week 8 already. We've got the 3-3 Detroit Lions facing off against the 4-2 Indianapolis Colts. My name is Jeremy Reisman. I will be your co-host for First Bite this week. I'm also the managing editor over at Pride of Detroit. You can find me at Detroit Online. With me, as always, as my co-host for First Bite is Ryan Matthews at Ryan_POD. Ryan, how we doing tonight?
We are doing well, even though you decided to drop a bombshell before our podcast that we'll have some news coming over at Pride of Detroit. So
yes, we're just gonna. By the time you hear this on the podcast, you've probably already read it on Pride of Detroit. But we're just gonna leave it hanging for now because we don't want to get into it because we could probably go for a full podcast on it, but we're not going to. Anyways, with us to help preview the Indianapolis Colts this week, we got Zach Hicks from Stampede Blue over there. He's the lead voice over there. You can find him at Zach Hicks2 on Twitter. Zach, how you doing tonight?
Pretty good. Can't complain too much so far about this season. It's nice to be covering a team that's actually playing pretty well, considering how last season ended and some of the other teams I've covered in my life. So no complaints right now, sitting at 4-2.
Yes, and let's just jump right into that because I think they're maybe one of the more surprising starts to the NFL. You're in that AFC South division that has already become just a 2-horse race. No pun intended with the Colts, but I want to talk about their season thus far because I think a lot of Lions fans tend to do this, and I'm definitely guilty of it. You try to downgrade your opponent in any sort of way possible, and so you look at the 4-2 record, you look at the 4 wins, you got the 1-7 Vikings, you got the 0-7 Jets, you got the 1-5-1 Bengals, and then you got a Bears team who I think we all have questions about, despite their good record. So how real do you think this team is? How good are they? Worthy of a 4-2 record? Is that a little bit of fool's gold? What are your overall thoughts on just their record, I guess?
Well, we're going to find out going forward here because they got you guys this week. And then after that, it's Ravens, Titans twice, Packers. They got Las Vegas and Pittsburgh down the stretch too. So we're really going to find out here in the next couple of weeks. And it does kind of start this weekend. But, I go back and forth with it. Sometimes you want to be that kind of homer and be super excited about everything the team's doing. Look at that 4-2 record and you kind of turn a blind eye to some of the struggles. But again, it's been kind of hit or miss. The defense is playing super well. Defense right now in DVOA, I think, is the third overall defense in football. And even though the opponents haven't been great, you can see that the defense has been pretty good this year. Offense has been pretty hit or miss, and that's kind of what Philip Rivers brings to the table wherever he's been in his career. So I think this is a good team. I don't know if I think they're a playoff contending team. I don't know if they're much more than that right now. And we'll definitely see, going forward, especially starting this weekend against the Lions, kind of what they really are going forward.
Yeah, and I think this is a good matchup, and I think it's a good litmus test for both teams, Zach, because they are both kind of middling teams, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And is there any concern for you covering the Colts that there's going to be like a second half season drop off? Last year, the Colts started 5-2. And then before you know it, they were 6-8. Do you see that could potentially happen to the Colts this year too?
It could certainly happen. I mean, there are some issues with this Colts team that do kind of point that could happen. But the thing is with last year, a lot of what the Colts were doing early last year was very regressible. When they were winning those games, when they were 5-2, they were number one in the NFL in like red zone rate, and it was like 80% like touchdown conversion rate. That was not going to hold out for an entire season. I think early in the year, they were like 32nd explosive play percentage. You were not going to hold out winning without creating explosive plays where, this year their third down percentage and the red zone percentage are so low that you feel like that only place that can really go is higher. So that's a positive regression thing that you're kind of looking at there. Explosive rate percentage is really high for the offense. Defense has played really well outside of, I think, 3 quarters or 3 halves this season. So I think there are more things there this year to point to that not happening. But this year, there's a much tougher record or much tougher opponents coming up than what they had last year. They didn't have to go through this caliber of Pittsburgh team coming up and this Ravens team that they're going up to, and then Titans twice, who look like one of the best teams in football. So it's a really tough schedule. I think it's going to be tough for them to get to that 10-11 wins, but they certainly can. They do have a couple games that they should win. So Yeah, obviously it could happen. They could definitely fall off like they did last year. I just don't think this team is the paper tigers that we saw last year. I think, obviously they could fall apart, but I don't think it's as foreseeable as last year's team.
Well, let's go into some of the offseason moves that they made, and I think we have to start with Phillip Rivers. You kind of mentioned him a little bit already. The Colts were part of that crazy quarterback carousel this offseason. They go with Phillip Rivers. I want to know, what was your reaction at the time, considering some of the other options that were out there, and has your opinion on that move changed now that we're 7 weeks into the season?
Yeah, so the biggest thing about that move that made me kind of excited for that move is Phillip Rivers, to start off, is not what he was. He's not a top 10 quarterback in this league. He's really not that anymore. Maybe on his best days he still is, but at his core value right now, he's not a top 10 quarterback. Maybe he's a top 15 to 18 type quarterback. But the biggest thing that I saw with that is, they went from a guy last year in Brissett who's maybe a bottom 10 starter in the league, bottom 5 starter in the league when he played last year, and they moved that needle up to around the 15th to 18th starter. So even though it was a $25 million contract and people were getting really big on that number, at the end of the day, they upgraded the most important position on the team. And they got, and they also got a guy that knows Frank Reich's offense, understands how to get the ball out of his hands, really fits what they want to do when Jacoby Brissett really didn't fit that for this team. So, I like the move. I didn't love it. There are some other options that could have gone. A lot of Colts fans and me included want them to maybe make an aggressive move to move up in the draft before the Buckner deal. There was a lot of things they could have done with the quarterback position, but I think getting Rivers was a fairly safe option that upgraded that quarterback position. So I didn't complain about it then. And, through 6 games this year, I'm not really complaining about it right now.
Yeah, and if you're not complaining about Phillip Rivers, you have to be excited about the additions that they made on defense. Adding a guy like DeForest Buckner, who I think is maybe one of the top 5 interior defensive linemen in football. You add Xavier Rhodes to the team as well. He had his ups and downs in Minnesota. We'll get to him, but just how good, Zach, is this defense? I mean, you mentioned they're not paper tigers this year. 4th in defensive DVOA, 4th in pass, 5th in run. Is this defense legit? Is this something for Lions fans to be concerned about going into this week?
Yeah, so aspects of this defense are really legit. They've had 3 bad halves this year, which caused that concern. That concern that Colts fans are kind of looking at and saying, like, maybe they could be exposed by better teams. Maybe a team like the Lions, who have a really good quarterback, could expose them. So they've had those 3 bad halves, one against they're all first half against the Bengals, Browns, and against the Jaguars in week 1. But besides that, they've been one of the best defenses in football. And I think they've showed a great ability to, adjust after halftime. Their splits from first to second half is insane. They just lock teams down in the second half. 2 is that they just get after the quarterback, and it's really not with blitzing. I think they're the least likely blitzing, like the least percentage in the league when it comes to blitzing. And a big part of that is DeForest Buckner. Then 3, they really do get on receivers with guys like Xavier Rhodes, who's having a big bounce back season, which, you said we'll talk about here in a second. Julian Blackmon looks like a star in the secondary. Kenny Moore II is a great slot corner. They're a really good defense. I don't think that they're, at the level of Pittsburgh or Tampa, but I think at their bottom value, they're still like a top 10, top 12 defense in this league. So maybe they're not a defense that you'd be absolutely terrified of, like Pittsburgh or Tampa. But it's a defense that you definitely can't make mistakes against because they'll take advantage of it.
You've mentioned these 3. Sorry to harp on the negative, but as a Lions fan, I'm trying to figure out, kind of scout and see where the weaknesses are. So you talk about those 3 halves that they struggled. Was there a common theme to those halves, or was it just depended on the opponent there?
It's tough because I think the week one game was kind of a bit of.
It's a throwaway game, right? Yeah.
Yeah, week 1 are weird games, especially when it's a divisional opponent on the road.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing you can really pull from is looking at that first half against the Bengals and the Browns. And the 2 things that really popped to me when I watched the film and really studied is both those teams are very play action heavy teams. And the Colts are a very aggressive team. They want to attack you. They want to fly downhill at you. So I think if you get that play action going and you're getting it effective, you can get some big plays on this team. But also too, it's just how much pressure the Colts are getting up front. If you can block that 4-man rush, if you can keep Buckner at bay, if you can keep Justin Houston from getting off the edge, you're going to find some success against this team. So the biggest thing is really just keeping that pass rush off you, because that pass rush is the core of everything with this defense.
Yeah, and that we'll get into maybe a little bit during the matchup part, but Lions have been pretty good on the interior in terms of their offensive line. Frank Ragnow's having a pretty good year. Jonah Jackson looks good as a rookie. But, yeah, I mean, it's kind of the second straight week of facing one of the best defensive tackles in the league. Last week it was Grady Jarrett. Now you got DeForest Buckner. They're different players, but they're both good at really both things. They're both good at pass rushing, both good at run defending. So, yeah, I think that's going to be one of the big matchups of the week.
Yeah, definitely. You guys handled Grady Jarrett pretty well last week too. I saw Frank Ragnow, which was back in the day of draft crushes and stuff. Frank Ragnow was like my number one back in the day. I loved Frank Ragnow. I was so happy that he's so good in this league.
I know exactly where you're going with this, Ryan. Go ahead.
Yeah,
retaliate.
I mean, if you want to talk about interior offensive lineman crushes, I have a huge crush on Quentin Nelson. He's just he's one of my favorite players in the entire NFL. Big Friday beers guy. So I mean, I love Quentin Nelson. I love the big guy. But they have a good center over in Indy too, Ryan Kelly. So it seems like we'll get into the matchup stuff in the second segment. But let's go ahead and jump into the injury report. It seems like some Colts got some maintenance days. They're coming off of a bye week, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah.
Which is something to be concerned about as a Lions fan. You saw how the Lions came out of the bye. They had a chance to jump all over the Jaguars. So for the Colts, like I said, a lot of maintenance days for some of their guys, but it seems like maybe one guy that might be out, might be in is Michael Pittman Jr. He returned to practice. Do you think it's likely he'll play? And if he does, like what kind of difference does he make?
Yeah, so the two guys who are I'll even add another guy here that you guys didn't mention, but Mo Alley Cox also is on the injury report with a knee injury. He's the only guy who was hurt before the bye who didn't practice today. So he's definitely one to watch. He's not really their tight end one. They have a trio of tight ends that they use a lot, so it's not a huge one. But going to Michael Pittman Jr., he did practice today. A couple weeks ago when he got this injury, which is kind of like a freak injury. I think it was like a pretty, from what I understand, I'm not a doctor or anything like that, but from what I understand, it was like a foot injury that if they didn't catch it in time for the surgery, it could have been like a really disastrous, like career-altering injury. So luckily they caught it quick, and apparently the timetable to recover from it's pretty quick as well. They were saying that they estimate him being back right after the bye week against Detroit. And from everything that the Colts are kind of saying, it seems like he is trending that way. But they're going to take it day by day with practice here. So we'll get an update on that throughout the week. But his impact this year has not been, all worldly. It's not been what some of these rookie receivers are doing across the league. But he's been really big on those third down plays for the Colts. He's made a lot of big catches over the middle, a lot of big catches in traffic, which he did a lot in his college days with USC as well. So it'd be a big player if the Colts can get back, but it's not like like a superstar player or anything like that. Like luckily, it looks like the Colts are getting Darius Leonard back for the first time in 3 weeks here, and that was a huge one that they had out for a couple weeks. So that's the big one that's going to be returning for this game.
Yeah, and just for clarification, if you don't know, Michael Pittman's currently on IR, but he's already returned to practice. So as soon as they activate him, he's eligible to play, but he's eligible to practice right now. So we'll see if they
actually just activated him.
Oh, they did activate him today. All right,
it happened like 45 minutes ago.
Well, there we go. All right, so he's on the 53 now. Well, that means we'll see him on the injury report if he's good to go starting tomorrow on Thursday. Anyways, that'll do it for our first segment. When we come back, I think we're eager to get into this matchup. There are a lot of interesting players facing interesting players, so we'll get into that in our second segment, and then we'll get into our predictions right after that. So stick around on First Bite. We'll be right back. All right, let me turn over to chat here. Nick the Greek, thank you for the 7 months of sub to the Twitch channel. Appreciate you, buddies. I'm not even going to bother to say what you said with your message because everyone can read it if they want. 100 bits from Uncle Indigo says Happy Galladay. Yes, Happy Galladay to you as well. Maybe. Wink.
Oh, no. I don't like it.
Let's see. What other questions? We had a couple questions in here. Backup is still Brissett. Is that true?
Yeah, as of right now, Brissett's still the backup. We're hoping he gets traded for the trade deadline, but I don't think it's going to happen.
You think you could get anything for him at this point?
Well, yeah, we hope so.
I mean, maybe Dallas would bite.
Okay, how much worse could he be than what they have in Dallas right now? Like, I will say the best thing about Jacoby Brissett, he hangs onto the ball for about 5 seconds in the pocket, and he'll just throw defensive ends off him. Like, so it's at least really fun to watch.
Sure.
Yeah. Hopefully for Dallas.
and you're saying that, Zach, because it's obvious that, like, do you think Jacob Eason is the guy that they're grooming behind Rivers to eventually be the starter? Or do you think that, like, I mean, if the Colts say their season just bottoms out, like there's a chance that they could go in a different direction?
I think hopefully Eason becomes the guy. Like you always hope your 4th-round pick quarterback becomes like the guy that just helps you so much more in the long run. But I think they're taking it as this guy with a lot of talent fell to the 4th round. He's got all the arm talent we're looking for and everything like that. So hopefully we can develop him into a chance that he could start one day. But if not, they're always going to have their eye on the draft. And I don't know. We'll see what happens this offseason. I would still lean that Rivers might be back after this year, especially if they make the playoffs. But hopefully, I every time someone asks me, I'm always like, I hope Eason becomes the guy, because that just makes life so much easier.
Oh yeah.
Another question from our chat. Ask him how worried he is about Stafford playing elite again.
Oh yeah, dude, I love Stafford. I'm a huge Stafford fan. Like Stafford. So I grew up a Washington fan, right? Which is a lot of Colts fans don't like hearing that from me, but I grew up a Washington fan, and I think it was the Thanksgiving game where where Stafford had messed up his shoulder and he dove over the pile at the 1-yard line or something like that. Was it? Or it wasn't a Thanksgiving game. It was a game against Cowboys, though, right?
Okay, well, I think you're mixing up 2 games. So there was the fake snap game where he dove over the pile at the end, and then there was the Browns game in his rookie season where he dislocated his shoulder and then threw the game-winning touchdown from the 1-yard line.
Okay, so I love him for both of those. In my memory, it was put into one. But anyway, yeah, I love Stafford, dude. I love Stafford. I hope he doesn't have an elite game this week, but I hope every other game he's elite. I hope every other game he's elite. And I'm scared of him every week, dude. If I'm ever going against him or rooting for the team against him, I'm always scared of Stafford, because he's a really good quarterback.
Yeah. Another question from Forrest, our good friend Forrest. He asks, what is stronger, the secondary or the defensive line, or are they both just really good?
I would say peak play, the defensive line. Just because of Buckner is that good.
Yeah.
But overall, I think if you're going for like more well-rounded, I'd say the secondary there's not really many like weaknesses up front, where the defensive line, I think there's some more holes. But Buckner and also Grover Stewart, which I'm sure we'll talk about here coming up, those guys are outstanding on the defensive line.
Yeah, there's such an interesting dynamic to the Colts schedule. As you mentioned, like they have the Colts coming up, like it's like the 12th, and then they play the Packers the next week, and then it's right back to the Titans the following week. So, does it seem like Indy fans kind of, they're doing their like schedule prognostications and they're looking ahead maybe a little bit, and they're like, well, there's a chance of the division, especially after the Titans, dropped last week to the Steelers?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a chance. And honestly, in my mind, the second I saw the Titans rolling through everybody, I was thinking, okay, well, we're playing for a wild card. I mean, maybe that's my pessimistic self.
Yeah,
that's how Lions fans are. Like as soon as that Green Bay happened, or that Green Bay game happened earlier in the year, where Green Bay, like Aaron Jones was just running all over the Lions, it was like, well, if anything's gonna happen, maybe the wild card.
Yeah. No, I think the biggest thing that we really want to see from the Colts coming up is, they have a murderous row of schedule this next month.
They really do. Like
Yeah.
I've been looking at a lot of schedules, and like it seems like the Colts one kind of takes the cake with Ravens, Titans, Packers, Titans.
Yeah. So Colts really need to win this game Sunday. They can't overlook this one, because there's not going to be many games where you have an even matchup going forward. So it's just a murderous row going forward. As long as they can win, I think if they can win 2 games in November, I'd call that a successful month.
I think I would too.
Yeah, I mean, those are 3 of the best teams, the 3 of the top like 5 teams in football. So if you can win 2 of those games, I think it's a successful month.
It was only a matter of time before this name was going to come up in this podcast, and I'm surprised I didn't do it myself. But thoughts on Eric Ebron, Zach?
Oh my! Oh yeah, you guys were not big fans of him when he left and came over here in 2018. And then we loved him, and now everyone hates him.
I was gonna say there was a little bit of drama there when he left too, right?
So personally, for me, I'm not someone who holds a grudge against Ebron. I think he was good for what he was here in Indy. Last year definitely showed some things that you don't want to see from a player in your locker room, I guess. I don't even think he's necessarily a bad dude or anything. I think it's all just, it just didn't work out in Indy.
Yeah.
That's the best thing I'll say about it. But for me personally, the 2018 season was so great. 1 with Andrew Luck, his last season in the league, and 2, Ebron just making play after play in the end zone, despite the drops occasionally here and there. That it was such a great season. I can't hold too much, hatred or anything like that towards Ebron. So
Yeah.
I like Ebron. I hope he plays fine for Pittsburgh, except for when the Colts play him. But yeah, the way the last year ended was a little weird for sure.
Yeah.
You guys understand it completely, though, I'm sure.
Yeah, I would say yes. And to be clear, I don't hate the dude either. It's almost become a meme at this point with Lions fans.
He's very active on Twitter to talk to you guys. So.
Yes, he certainly hasn't forgotten us, and we certainly haven't forgotten him. So that's fun. All right, I think. I guess we'll fit one more Andrew Luck question in here. Sorry to do that to you. Before we'll just make sure it's off the podcast so that we don't want you crying on the podcast.
That's good. I'm already.
Does he have any relationship with the organization?
From what I can tell, he keeps in contact with all the coaches and players, but it's mostly more of like a good luck and like cheering them on and stuff. It's not really. I honestly, I'm not super plugged in. I talk to some people and stuff. I know a lot of people want to say that he'll come back. I really don't think it happens. He seems very, very happy outside of football.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why he said he didn't just kind of fell out of love with the game, and he wanted to be there for his wife and kid. And I completely get it. A lot of it was how he recovered from injuries. And I'm not even a pro athlete. And I know when I was a kid, I had some like broken arms and stuff where like, the recovery process just kind of wears on you. So I can only imagine what it's like when it's your job and stuff. And he's had like lacerated kidney, like that whole shoulder issue, his calf issue. So I think he's happy right now. I think he loves rooting for the team. And unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever see him play football again.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what Lions fans certainly know what Colts fans are going through there. Just like the first 2-3 years are just like all denial. Like, no, he'll be back. Like he'll end up missing it. He won't realize how much he'll miss it, and then he'll want to come back. And then 10 years later, there's still like a couple fans that are like, but Barry, maybe no.
Barry, Calvin, both of them.
Yeah, I would need Calvin
yeah,
too.
Well, then all of a sudden the receiver that you're pining over shows up to Raiders camp and is wearing Raiders gear and
hey, he did a Zoom meeting with the Lions this offseason though. The healing has begun.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back into it. We'll get into the matchups portion here. Let me pull up my notes real quick and give you a second of silence so that our editor knows when to cut this out. And we are back on First Bite, our Lions-Colts preview with our good friend now, Zach Hicks of Stampede Blue, the lead voice over there at Zach Hicks2 on Twitter. Let's get into the matchup portion because, as I teased at the top, there's a lot of really interesting matchups where I feel like it's almost like strength for strength. Let's start. I don't know, Ryan. Where do you want to start?
Why don't we start right with that? I think it's the most interesting matchup, but it's that defensive line versus the Lions' offensive line. Like, I mean, is Indy just a team that you mentioned in the first segment, Zach, that they rush 4 and they try to get pressure that way? Are they a team that kind of backs that up with any blitzing or anything like that? Because the Lions' offensive line, while they're they've been pretty stout in the run game, there's been some problems in the pass game. Like Stafford's been sacked a little bit. They've cleaned it up a little bit since the bye week, but is Indy a team that can really get after the quarterback?
Yeah, so to start the year they had this unreal sack rate, and it really wasn't with any blitzing at all. And I think currently, I don't want to say the wrong number, but I believe they have the least, like the lowest blitz percentage in the league right now. I don't even think it's fairly close. I think last I checked it was like 17% or something, or 16%. So it's super low. They don't blitz at all, and it's always kind of been a big thing with Matt Eberflus. But he did do it more the last 2 years before they got Buckner because they need to generate pressure somehow. Now they have a guy like DeForest Buckner where you're going to get, honestly, I'd probably say 7-8 rushes a game where he's disrupting the pass. So you have a guy like that where you don't really need to blitz as much. Obviously, personally, I'm a big blitz guy. I really wish they would blitz a little bit more, but when they do, it's always something different. It's always something fun. It's, Darius Leonard will come off the side. They like to blitz Kenny Moore from the slot a lot. I think he has 6 sacks over the last 2 years from his slot corner position. So they do bring him quite a bit, but yeah, for the most part, it's going to be man versus man. It's going to be Justin Houston Danico Autry, DeForest Buckner, and whoever they bump at the other strong side defensive end. Sometimes it's Al-Qadim Muhammad, it's Ben Bonagu. Those guys get after the passer, and it's not at like a super high level like it was earlier. They don't have a super high pressure rate or anything like that. But with DeForest Buckner and Justin Houston, I think they get just enough to where they can disrupt the passer.
Yeah, and that's obviously going to be, I think, one of the biggest tests the Lions really had, because I feel like while the Lions have faced some good defensive lines, I'm not sure if they've faced a plethora, like a line that has kind of a weapon at every spot there. And we've seen some struggles from Halapuli Vaitai over at right guard. I thought last week was a rough game for him. The Lions aren't sure if Tyrell Crosby is their guy at right tackle or if they want to kick Vaitai back out there. I think that should be a good matchup. And I also think kind of the inverse of this will also be a good matchup, because the Lions' defensive line is actually starting to play pretty well right now, but they've got a heck of a test against this Colts offensive line. We already talked about a couple of those guys. Zach, is there anyone else on that offensive line besides the center, besides Quentin Nelson, that this Colts offensive front is really dominant? I was looking at the PFF grades, and it's all green on that offensive line.
Yeah, so I think currently on Pro Football Focus, which, take the grades for what they will. I know some people take them at gospel, some people take them not very high at all. But I think the Colts currently have 3 of the top 10 rated interior offensive linemen. I think Mark Lewinsky's 9th. He's the right guard. Quentin Nelson is 7th. And I think Ryan Kelly's in the top 4, I believe. Or maybe I think they're both top 10 for guards and Kelly's top 5% or something like that.
Yeah.
So they're all really highly graded. And
they're good.
Yeah, they're good. They're good. And even though I think Costanzo and Braden Smith are ranked, I think, in like the 30s for tackles, they still have good grades. Like there's nothing poor, or neither of them are liabilities whatsoever. So yeah, I'm really excited for that matchup too. From what I saw at the line, you guys can correct me here. When I watched some of your guys' film, I feel like the defensive line has gotten a lot better the last 2 weeks.
Yep.
I still think they give up a little bit too much ground off the snap, though.
Sure.
And I think that's where the Colts can really take advantage, because, they have these maulers up front. Like Lewinsky's a mauler. He has his issues in pass protection every now and then, but he's a mauler. Braden Smith, if you guys do a lot of draft work, he was a guard in college. He's a big-time mauler. Quentin Nelson, obviously, Ryan Kelly. So the big thing they do is they punch you off the snap. Are you guys worried about that right there? Is that an issue that you guys have seen too? If the Lions kind of get knocked back a little off the ball, but they recover. Like I saw last week, they got knocked off like 2 or 3 yards off the ball every time, but they recovered really well and made some nice tackles in the hole.
Yeah, I almost think part of that is just the scheme. Like they don't want these guys attacking upfield. Their job is to mostly just hold ground. And yeah, I mean, when you're facing off against 350-pound guys, like you're going to get pushed back a little bit, even though you're trying to push back with the same thing. So I think part of that is honestly just like, that's going as planned. That's what they want. And they have been better in the last 3 weeks because they've really gotten beefier. They go with a lot of 3 defensive tackle looks now, with rookie John Pennicini as their nose, and then they got Danny Shelton on one side at the 3 tech, and then either Deshaun Hand or Nick Williams over there at the other 3 tech. And that's been working for them well a lot. I think those 3 work together really well. And we've seen it in terms of run defense has been night and day from where it was before the bye. Mm-hmm. And that kind of goes into my next question is, well, what's going on with the Colts running offense then? Because as a team, they're running for 3.6 yards per carry. They got all this great interior offensive line play. What's the mismatch there? What's not going right in the running game?
So there's kind of a couple issues. To start the year, Jonathan Taylor was not seeing the holes well at all. And, when you come from a place like Wisconsin where you can drive trucks through every single lane, not saying that you can't do that with some of the Colts run lanes that they provide too, but the NFL, the decision making is so split second to find that right hole, and he just wasn't seeing it well the first 2 or 3 weeks. He's seen the ball a lot better the last couple of weeks. I think the last 3 weeks he's at like 4.5 yards a carry, so he has been playing really well this last couple of weeks. But that's been one issue. The loss of Marlon Mack was huge. I mean, Marlon Mack played some great football. But another part is we talked about them kind of playing this easier schedule. They've been in a lot of leads. Just a lot of leads. The Vikings game, the Jets game, the Bears game, they pretty much had that controlled the entire game as well. So late in those games, they've kind of just been run the ball. And I think Taylor had like 40 carries against the Vikings. They ran the ball a lot late against the Jets for very few yards there. I think that kind of brings down that average a bit. Overall, it's still kind of an issue. They are, teams are stacking the box in certain situations. They're just getting favorable matchups in there. But I'm not too super concerned about this run game. I think Jonathan Taylor's getting better. And this offensive line is playing pretty well despite what the numbers say. So I don't think it's a huge issue, but it's definitely something to watch, especially with the Lions playing better up front these last couple games.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting that you bring up, Jonathan Taylor's struggles, because you look around at the rest of the playmakers on this Colts offense. I think so many people are usually familiar with T.Y. Hilton and all of his explosive plays that he once made in his career. Seems like T.Y. Hilton is maybe not the player that he once was, or maybe he's being used a little bit differently because, the change up at quarterback with Phillip Rivers. But just who are the Colts offensive playmakers? Like, who are the guys that they count on when it's crunch time, when it's time to get a first down, when it's time to make a big play? Who are the Lions really looking out for this week against the Colts?
Yeah, so the beauty of Phillip Rivers is, because he's been in this league for, since I was a toddler, is that it can be anyone. He finds that matchup he likes and he exploits it. The last game against the Bengals, it was all Marcus Johnson, who was a free agent for the first 3 weeks of the season, who the Colts like, obviously, but if they liked him more, he would have been on the roster to start the year. It was Marcus Johnson that week. Some games it's been Zach Pascal, who was the Colts leading receiver last year. Other games it's been T.Y. Hilton, but not in ways where he's getting a lot of catches, but ways where he's drawing pass interference down the field and getting those big yards play for them that way. Mo Alley-Cox has a 100-yard game this year. Jack Doyle or Trey Burton, I think, had 2 touchdowns last game. Jack Doyle has a couple games this year where he's had some good catch output. So, it's someone different every single week. It really is the good thing about having a veteran quarterback is it's really not going to get forced one way or to one person. And the Colts really don't have a star player in the receiving game that you can force the ball to. There really isn't that guy. With T.Y. Hilton, even though I think his numbers are a lot lower than what they could be because of pass interferences and a couple drops he's had, I don't think he's been playing as poor as what the numbers look like. He still doesn't look like himself whatsoever. He doesn't look like that number one receiver, that star receiver. So they don't really have that guy in this receiving group. So it's perfect to have a quarterback like Rivers where he's going to spread the ball to everyone. There'll be games where Pascal gets 6 catches, where Michael Pittman Jr. gets 6 catches, where Marcus Johnson gets 100 yards, Molly Cox. So it's all spread around. It's not really to one guy, and they have a pretty heavy subgroup there at receivers as well.
All right, let's again flip it around here. Let's talk about the Lions receivers against that Colts secondary, and we have to talk about it. We have to talk about Marvin Jones. We have to talk about Xavier Rhodes, because there's a bit of a history between those two, in that Marvin Jones has now, we jokingly say that Xavier Rhodes is his son, because he's had some fantastic games against him in particular, but it looks like we've got a different Xavier Rhodes this year.
Xavier Jones.
Maybe you should start calling him Xavier Jones.
Officially adopted.
Officially adopted. There you go. But tell me what looks different about him, because I have to imagine you were probably a little weary of that signing at the time, considering how not well he was playing with the Vikings. How is he so much better right now?
So the first part of the answer to that is part of me doesn't have any clue how he looked like this. I mean, part of me really doesn't, because last year I watched and, I think cautiously optimistic is still being a little optimistic by saying what this was, because I really wasn't super optimistic. I thought he could be a low-end cornerback 2 or something for this team, like a good fill-in starter, kind of like what Pierre Desir was for them last year. I didn't expect anything special, but this year he looked so much faster than what I watched every game they played last year and also the year before, and he looked like he had cement in his shoes on some of those deep routes, where this year he looks, he's on every single receiver. I mean, even when he's getting beat, it's usually from a receiver just high pointing the ball over him and catching it through his hand. It's really not he's not really getting beat straight up man on man. So in that regard, he kind of looks like, the Xavier Rhodes who was the All-Pro years ago. Obviously he's not that level. He is able to be beat right now, but right now I would say he's playing like a top cornerback in the league this year. And the biggest thing is, the Colts aren't really putting him in a lot of situations that are disadvantages for him. They're putting him in a lot of zones, cover 2 zones. They also do a lot of match concepts where even though he is kind of in a man, they're going to have that cover 3 safety over the top, kind of sitting over the top. So he does have a lot of help in the back end, but in anything they're really calling, if it's man, if it's cover 3 match, if it's cover 2, he's playing his assignment really well, and he's making plays on the ball. So I think he's third in the NFL in pass breakups right now, allowing a 0 passer rating on third down, which Pro Football Focus tweeted out the other day. I think he's like their fourth or fifth highest rated corner or something on the year. So huge bounce back year that I really didn't expect from him. And hopefully that continues this week against the Lions, even though he's playing against his dad, which it's a tough matchup for him, going against his dad. But I think it's a different Xavier Rhodes and also a different defense where it's not going to be him on an island versus Jones. So it won't be the matchup that everyone really hopes for most of the game.
And I want to dig a little bit deeper into that Colts secondary because I think they got 10 interceptions leading the league in passer rating allowed, all that sort of stuff. Lions got a ton of weapons too, though. I mean, they kind of spread things around quite a bit with obviously Kenny Galladay, TJ Hawkinson.
Everyone's Jones on the team.
Yeah, I guess everyone is a Jones now. Everyone is now related to each other. I don't know what's going on. But tell me more about the depth in the secondary. Are they vulnerable, let's say, to tight ends? Is there other guys stepping up? I know their rookie safety is playing really well as well. So kind of give us a sense of how that's working for them and how they match up with the Lions.
Yeah, so again, the biggest thing is really all scheme with the Colts defense. If they get beat, it's typically not they're getting beat. It's typically like a miss coverage or something, a misassignment in coverage. They're not really getting beat one-on-one because this scheme really doesn't put them in many situations like that. There's a lot of cover 2 looks, which I know is like a dying breed in the NFL, but they do a lot of cover 2 zone defense. They keep a lot of plays in front of them. So offenses that like to go down the field typically don't have too much success against the Colts outside of a few situations here and there. They've done a really good job this year too of mixing in a lot of cover 3 match, which I've really liked because it does look like a man coverage, but you do have that safety roaming over the top, which is really cool. But, Xavier Rhodes is playing at a really high level. Rock Ya-Sin is the other starting corner. And, even though he's not playing as well as Xavier Rhodes, he is still playing some pretty good football out there on the other side. I don't think he's allowed a touchdown since week 8 of last season. So he's played really well. Julian Blackmon has been, just outstanding. He's kind of everything that Colts fans and draft people expected when the Colts took Malik Hooker. He just looks like a stud on the back end. I think he's second in the NFL in pass deflections for safeties, and he's only played like 4 games or 3 games, I think. So he's been great. 2 picks also in the year that both kind of ended games. Then Kari Willis is just as solid as it comes. Just a really good run defender. Makes some plays in coverage. He's kind of like a Kenny Vaccaro type. So. The secondary, it's really not like there's no superstars. Julian Blackmon's playing really well. Xavier Rhodes is playing really well, and they can be beat. There's times where the middle of the field is pretty open. The Colts do like to funnel things kind of in front of them and in the middle of the field. So there will be moments where you can do those cover 2 beaters, where you can try to draw those linebackers up with play action or with underneath routes and hit over the top behind them. But for the most part, they do a great job of taking away the downfield throws. And they stick on receivers when they play that cover 3 match. So it's definitely a tough secondary to beat. But there are moments where they have, misreads in coverage and they leave the middle of the field a little open. I'd say that's probably where you can really exploit them.
Is there any chance that the Lions could maybe establish a run game against them? I'm looking at the box scores for Indianapolis so far this season, and there's been 4 occasions where the Colts have held opposing teams' rushing attacks to under 100 yards, and some of them are pretty impressive, like against the Vikings in week 2, held the Bears to 28 yards rushing in their matchup, and then most recently against the Bengals before their bye week. But is there any chance that the Lions can get a ground game going, or is it that defensive line that's really just causing a lot of run stuffing?
I'll say if Darius Leonard plays, it's going to be really, really tough to get a run game going against the Colts. Because the biggest thing, I actually wrote a big piece about this, why the Colts run defense has been so great. Because it's actually since like week 5 of last year. I haven't crunched the numbers 100. Like this was as of like 2 or 3 weeks ago. But opposing teams were averaging like 2.7 yards per carry against the Colts in week 5 last year. And the big reason is, one is DeForest Buckner because he's elite in every facet when it comes to run defense, pass defense. But the other big part is just Grover Stewart at the 1 tech. Not many people know who he is. He's kind of really the under the radar player. But when you turn on the film and you try to watch that middle of the offensive line to see who's getting a push, he's not moving. He's either driving a guy into the backfield or he's staying at that line. He's not getting driven off the ball. So one of my favorite matchups in this game is going to be Frank Ragnow and him on the interior there. I think that's two just Goliaths going after each other. But those two are great. And then they have really, really fast linebackers. Bobby Okereke, Darius Leonard, those guys fly after the ball. Kenny Moore is like a third linebacker when he's in there. He just attacks the ball. He's a great run defender. Most stops in the NFL behind, I think, Budda Baker when it comes to cornerbacks this year. So yeah, they play the run really well. They're told to stop the run. That's the biggest part of this defense, because if they can force you into second and long, third and long, that sets up their cover 2 defense and playing the sticks and keeping everything in front. And that's when they force you into mistakes, because you're trying to get to those sticks when they have all their guys there. So yeah, they bring a lot after the run. It's the biggest emphasis in this defense. I think the Lions, there are moments where they can run. There are plays they can have success on running the ball, but for the most part, it's going to be a really tough battle if they want to run the ball on the Colts.
All right, and with that, I think it's time to move to our predictions portion. We like to call it the one thing we think we know about this matchup. Doesn't necessarily have to be a score prediction, but if you want to give one, that's cool too. So Ryan, what is the one thing you think you know about Lions-Colts?
Well, I think the one thing I think I know, Zach kind of, set this up for me. He teed it up for me, is that the Colts maybe are susceptible to a slow start. And if they are susceptible to a slow start, they've, experienced some problems with, in the first half. The Lions are the team who have really jumped out to leads, and we've known that to be them. So I actually, shot a quick text message to my buddy Bovada King. The Lions are even money to win the race to 10 points. I think that it could be totally feasible that the Lions maybe put up 10 points in the first quarter. And all of a sudden now it's a game where the Colts have to, start throwing the ball. And I'm not saying that it's going to be a shootout necessarily, but what I am saying is that I could see the Lions jumping out to an early lead in this one and making things interesting.
All right, we'll throw it to you next, Zach. What's the one thing you think you know about Lions-Colts?
All right, so I've watched a lot of Lions secondary the last 2 years. Probably, I think because the Colts signed Taven Wilson this offseason, I watched a lot of what the Lions secondary did. And I'm not that I'm not impressed with some of the players. I like Jeff Okudah. I really like Tracy Walker. I think Tracy Walker's awesome.
Yeah.
But I do think teams can throw on you on the Lions. I really think they can. So the one thing I feel like I know going to this game, regardless of what the score outcome is going to be, is I feel like Rivers is going to throw over 300 yards in this game. I think he's going to have maybe not this elite passing game or anything like that. And, there could be a couple picks sprinkled in there because that's who he is as a person. But
as a person,
he likes throwing interceptions. But I think he's going to hit over 300, whether it's win or loss. I think he's going to have a good game passing. He's going to he's going to keep that aggressiveness that he had last game against the Bengals and attack down the field.
Well, that goes nicely into the one thing I think I know, and I'm going to be a little bold on the side here. I'm kind of on a roll here because I said TJ Hockenson. I think I said 80 yards and a touchdown last week. He got 60 and a touchdown, so I'm going to count that as a win. I'm going to say Matthew Stafford throws for 300 yards in this game. And part of that is going to be out of necessity, I think, because you just went over all the reasons why the run game's not going to work. And we saw the Lions, their run game wasn't working too well last week, and Stafford finally went over 300 yards. You look at this Colts defense, and yes, it is pretty good, but zone concepts are things that I think tend to confuse younger quarterbacks. The Colts have faced a lot of young quarterbacks so far. Their best quarterback they faced is probably Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins certainly isn't playing at the level he was in previous years. So I think he's going to present a bit of a problem for the Colts. I think maybe even we get to that shootout, even though it seems so unlikely since, Lions defense is playing better, the Colts defense is really good. I think we might get ourselves into a shootout just because the teams will essentially maybe not give up on the run, but definitely favor the passing game, especially in the second half there. So I think we're in for a lot of passing yards in this game.
I have to say that I think the tagline for Phillip Rivers' autobiography should be interceptions and conception, the Phillip Rivers story.
I'm glad you got that in there, Ryan.
That's who he is as a person. Speaking of plugging your stuff, Zach, where can everybody find your stuff, man? Where can they find you on Twitter? What kind of stuff can they expect from you like this week in terms of Colts preview stuff?
All right, so you guys can find me at Zach Hicks 2 on Twitter. Somebody had Zach Hicks 1, I'm pretty sure. That's why I'm Zach Hicks 2. I always gotta get the asked on so many pods and radio shows and stuff. Yeah, I'm pretty sure somebody has Zach Hicks or Zach Hicks 1. So Zach Hicks 2 on Twitter, ZACHHICKS 2. And then, I'm the lead voice over at Stampede Blue. Tons of film work over there is what I really focus on. Just trying to get that kind of content, you guys. So if you want to see more about the Colts in terms of who's playing well, what personnel packages the Colts do, stuff like that, you can just look at my work over there on my Twitter. But yeah, I'm just working on previewing the game a little bit, mostly just writing about Colts side. That's usually what I do. We do have another writer who previews kind of the matchups in the game. But yeah, mostly excited for the Sunday game. This is a big game for the Colts because, like we said, they got this murderous row coming afterwards. And I'm not trying to discount the Lions because I think you guys have a pretty good team, but you guys aren't at the level that those teams are at. So the Colts need to take this one before going into that run of 4 games.
Yeah, no offense taken there.
Yeah. No.
I like talking to people who are middling teams. It's fun. Like we all understand.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I'm still a little thrown by Ryan just somehow making a plugging segue there. That was something right there. Anyways, that's going to do it for First Bite. Thank you for listening. Stick around on the Twitch page. We'll answer some of your questions, and then we'll be back for our Madden Sim on Saturdays. But if you're listening on the podcast, we will see you Sunday after the game. Thanks for listening. I didn't even do my saying at the end. I forgot. Anyways.
Oh, I thought I was going to lose my job because you're talking about plugging and Phillip Rivers and Conception. So,
you know what? I'm all for it. I don't care.
POD after dark, baby.
By the way, Nick, thank you for the one bit who also made a Phillip Rivers pregnant joke. So enjoy that chat. Thanks, Chief DeBlunt, for following. Thank you, Montreal Canadiens 89 for following. And I think I'm all caught up on alerts there. Any other questions, chat, before we let Zach go? And if you have to go, Zach, please go. I know this is a little bit over the time I estimated you for. So
you're good. I got the puppy locked upstairs. We're good.
There. If you want to bring the puppy down, chat loves puppies.
I got one that's really cute, and the other one's kind of mean.
Fair enough.
We love all dogs here at Pets of Detroit.
Pets of Detroit. I saw somebody going after you guys in the Twitter comments the other day. I think he was going after individually, like each one of you guys, and he was saying, what was he calling you guys?
Cucks?
Yeah, it was something with POD, but he was saying, shit, I gotta find it. It was some guy with like no followers, but it was hilarious. He like added every single one of you guys about how much you hate the root for Lions to lose or something.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we were getting it a lot after the Jaguars game because I think about 8 of 13 people on our staff picked them to lose that game.
Not me.
Yeah, and I don't like.
Game,
yeah, there was then like half of our staff got involved with it. I immediately blocked the dudes. Like I don't need this in my life right now.
Yeah, that was hilarious. I was reading through that. That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always a good treat when the trolls come out.
Right.
Oh, dude, it is. The more followers you get, the more fun it becomes. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
No, Chad, I'm not going to give you a link to that conversation. I'm sorry. I couldn't find it even if I wanted to.
I couldn't either. Go digging.
Maybe
go
if
digging
you
on, who's it, Mansour?
Probably Mansour, probably Chris. I don't know. Maybe if you ask Zach nicely on Twitter, he'll send you a link.
I gotta find it. I can't remember which one of you guys I was following where it popped up. I just know it popped up, and I was like, "Ooh, okay."
Oh, I have a request to see my pup from the chat too, so I'm waking him from his slumber.
Here's the cute one.
Oh, hello, Zazu.
He's sleeping. Oh.
There we go.
Look, it's another puppy.
What's your pup's name?
This one is Pudge.
Pudge. Ooh, little Ivan Rodriguez.
Is that what he's named Pudge for?
No, he was in his baby picture he was really chubby.
Oh.
Like when we were going to go get him, he was super chunky, and then now he's like skinny, and it doesn't make sense. But
that makes it perfect though. Like I have a dog named Goose, and it confuses the shit out of every little kid. It's like, what's his name? Goose. Like a goose is a bird. It's like.
I told my wife when we first started dating that I was gonna name our first kid Goose. That's like my test to see if she was gonna be, cool.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
She's still around, obviously. We just got good.
very nice. Is Zazu comfortable?
I don't know what he's doing. He's just laying back. Are you sleepy? Are you sleepy? We didn't even do anything today.
Mine's asleep.
Oh.
Oh. Really making me miss Goose right now.
Yeah, you did get a Goose request as well. Sorry. Zeus isn't with Ryan yet.
You can
Sure.
see the rod in my leg.
Yeah, let's see the progress on the leg. Can you go up and do the okay. So oh my god, that scar is ridiculous, dude.
That scar is gnarly. Yeah.
Can you do the Uncle Joe dance yet? Have you been learning that like I requested? No? Darn it. What are you doing? Can you dunk now? Ask Uncle Indigo.
Can I dunk? Oops. Give me a second. I gotta really start working on my left leg. I can't really explode off my right leg. I used to be able to dunk on a 12-foot hoop off my right leg. So. All right.
Oh, you got the mean one now?
So she's just a little cranky because she's like 4 months old.
So
she's brand new.
Aw, what's her name?
She's Ivy.
Ivy. Cute.
Yeah. She's awful. Walk them both a couple miles when it's my shift because my wife works night shifts and I work day shifts. So basically we take shifts with the dogs. So right when I get home from my shift, I just take them on like a couple mile walk just to wear them out for my entire time.
Yeah, just so that they're out. Yeah, that's smart, man.
They're both, dude, combined, they're like not even 2 years old. Like they're both child. Like they're going to be children. Like they're both going to be crazy.
Yeah.
Chat wants more dirt on Ebron, and I'm not gonna hold your feet to the fire on that at all. So don't.
Yeah, I would say I heard things. I'm not gonna say them though.
Perfect. That's totally fine.
It's all I'll say is he called out a very respected GM in a sort of way that we don't like to talk about, that we don't ever call out in Indy with, Chris Ballard. So yeah, we don't. Nobody's really a big fan of Eric Ebron anymore in Indy. There are definitely some people who like the 2018 year, but that's about it right now.
And then chat is also asking me to tease or to give more info on what we teased at the very beginning of the podcast. All I'm going to say is look up the ESPN Giants reporter. That's all I'm going to say.
So it was from ESPN, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Is that it?
Jordan Renan, I believe is his name. Ronan.
Yeah. I was gonna say Jeremy doesn't usually run with anything. Like it has to be like a substantiated like.
So yeah, I get that.
That's all I'll say. Anything else before we go head out of here, chat? Do you want to see? I don't think I have any more pets that I can show. So
yeah, I only have the 2, and I think that's already too much.
Two is too much. Jared, are you gonna be putting that out tonight, or are you gonna wait for the morning?
Put it out now.
Yeah, I think you should put it out. Yeah. So what? Just stick to Pride of Detroit for like the next
it'll probably be
half
out.
Hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah, I'd say I can probably punch it out in 30 minutes if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, we should get to it before anybody else does, to be honest. So
yeah. Anyways, I think that's probably. Bolson, it's just a news story that I think is going to be semi-big. It's not huge, but it's going to make some noise for sure. That again, we're probably going to put out in about 30 minutes. All right, it doesn't look like we got anything. Wait, Joshua says if we can hold DeForest Buckner to 1 sack, Stafford gets sacked less than 4 times, and he throws less than 2 interceptions, I'll gift 30 subs this weekend. That's a lot of qualifications, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
Screenshot it.
I will say Buckner's big thing is last year he had 14 quarterback hits, right?
Mm-hmm.
This year, through 6 games, he has 13, but he only has 2.5 sacks. So he's killing quarterbacks, but he's not getting the sacks. So that first part might get met. You might have good luck with that one.
All right. I like it.
Like against Burrow, I think he had like 6 quarterback hits or something, like 5 in that game.
Gosh,
but only 1 sack. So
welcome to the league, Rook.
Honestly, though, right?
Yeah.
Oh, here's a good question because it actually leads me to something we didn't talk about at all. Do you fear Jack Fox, our punter, And the reason I think that's interesting to bring up is because I think by DVOA, Indianapolis is 2 in special teams. What's the deal with that?
Oh, dude, the Colts. So last year we sucked. Last year we were just trash, especially because we had Vinatieri who made 30% of his kicks, extra points included.
Yeah.
So this year they got Rigoberto Sanchez at punter,
and everybody's favorite kicker, right?
Yeah, it's a kicker. It's whatever. But
Rodrigo Blankenship, man, rocking the goggles.
I don't care for kick. You guys will find out if you're following me now. I don't care for kickers. That's my brand.
Mine is the same with punters until Jack Fox came along. Now when he was literally the MVP of the team through 4 weeks.
Yeah.
He somehow made me love punters. Now I don't care about him anymore because the rest of the team's playing okay.
You know how most people are with offensive linemen, where it's if I don't hear about you for a whole game, then you're doing good. That's me with kickers. If I don't yell your name at the screen during the we're cool. But outside of that, we're not. But it's gonna be a fun special teams. Are you guys number 1 in DVOA?
No, I think it's 7 or 8 now. But okay. Pretty high up there.
So
did they hire a new coach?
No, they have the same guy.
Oh, really? Huh.
But Rigoberto Sanchez hasn't kicked a touchback on a punt since I want to say week 2 of last year.
Jeez.
Oh.
0 touchbacks. And they also have 2 really, really good gunners in George Odom and Ashton Dulin. I think George Odom leads the NFL in special teams tackles. So, yeah, their special teams unit is pretty darn good. And then Isaiah Rodgers had the kick return touchdown against the Browns. So that's going to be a fun matchup, watching the punters duel it out. Hopefully they won't field goal.
I'll have to write up a 2,000-word thing on Punter Battle 2020.
Film room, punter battle. I will say my favorite thing, even though they're not going to be on the field together, is the top 2 centers in football this year is Frank Ragnow and Ryan Kelly, in my opinion. I haven't watched every single game, but I saw a good bit of Frank last week where he was just moving Grady Jarrett at will in the run game, with a lot of ease. And so I'm excited to see both those guys play. I love offensive line play, and Frank's my all-time draft crush, so I'm really excited about that one.
Yeah, one of my favorites. One of my favorite stories I've heard about Frank Ragnow from. I actually know the guy who does a lot of fishing with him, and Frank said that his transition to the NFL was pretty seamless. Just coming from the SEC, it was nobody really pushed me around until I met Aaron Donald, and then Aaron Donald really just put me to task. So it's gonna be you mentioned the battle with was it Grover
Stewart? Yeah,
Grover Stewart.
You guys gotta look at some of him. He's an absolute animal on the interior.
Yeah.
I saw him. So Treader, I think JC Treader is his name.
Mm-hmm.
JC Treader for the Browns is PFF's number 1 ranked center. And if you watch that game, because they have a really good interior, Joel Bitonio, JC Treader, and Wyatt Peller, and it might have been the best game he's ever played, Grover Stewart, against that line. He was in the backfield he had 4 stops in that game or something like that, 2 tackles for a loss. He's a really, really good one tech.
Yeah, I think for a while, until the Lions overtook him, Cleveland had, according to PFF, the best run blocking unit for their offensive line. So that's impressive. Maybe Grover Stewart single-handedly knocked him off the pedestal.
Yeah, no, he's gonna get DJ Reader money this offseason for sure. Where it's gonna be that 4-year, close to $60 million. And it's gonna
that was Jeremy's
my free agency truck a little bit, a little bit.
Yeah, he's the same thing as DJ Reader, honestly. Not much in the pass rush, but he's gonna punch every single interior lineman in the mouth all game long and drive into the backfield. I really wish the Colts would have extended Grover last offseason. I'm really bummed they didn't, because now he's gonna get a ton of money.
All right, I think that's gonna do it. Thank you, chat. Thank you, Twitch. Thank you, YouTube, who's watching this on replay, for joining us. Like I said, we're gonna have our Madden Sim on Saturday morning. Probably might be closer to 11 than our normal 10:30 spot. We'll see how my morning goes. I don't want to bleed too much into that Michigan State game though, so we'll see.
What?
Yeah, I know you're gonna love that one. And then we'll have our post game after the game and our full podcast around 7 p.m. Eastern time, Sunday night. But until then, y'all keep it real. It's chaos. Be kind. We'll see you on Saturday.